Hey guys, welcome to your rounding and estimating review. We've talked about this during our lesson on Monday, during our small groups on Monday and Tuesday, and today is the day that you are going to do your review so we can move on tomorrow, okay? So I want to go through the 3 steps when we're rounding and then how that transfers to our estimating, okay? So remember, the first step is always to figure out what place we're rounding to, and then we go right next door. So I'm going to write go right next door. We're going to our neighbor. Okay? So we go to our next door neighbor. And our next step is if that neighbor is 5 or larger, our underlined number is going to go up by 1. If that number is 4 or smaller, our underlined number is going to stay the same, okay? So let's look at this one. I went right next door. That number is 2. So that would be 4 or smaller. So my underlined number stays the same. My next step is that everything to the left stays the same as well. And everything to the right becomes zeros. So we've decided we're staying the same. That number and everything to the left stays the same. So I'm going to keep my 4 and I'm going to keep my 7 because that's what we decided with our rounding. And now everything to the right becomes zeros. So I fill in all of my places with zeros. So this number rounds to my 4,725,806 rounds to 4,700,000. Okay, let's keep going with these steps for our next 3 practices. I go right next door and I say, is that 5 or larger? No, it's 4 or smaller. So my underlined number stays the same. Everything to the left stays the same. We don't have anything to the left. Everything to the right becomes zeros. Let's keep going. Here we go. I go to the right, go right next door. 6 is 5 or larger, so my underlined number needs to go up. So my 1 is going to go to 2. Everything to the left stays the same. Everything to the right becomes zeros. Last but not least, we're rounding to our hundredths here. We're going to go right next door. 2 is 4 or smaller, so my underlined number stays the same. Everything to the left, this is an important one. Everything to the left stays the same, so I'm going to keep my 18 and my 6/10. And we decided the 9 stays the same. Everything to the right becomes a 0. Okay? So that's our rounding review. These 3 steps are really the most important thing anytime we're rounding. Now, when we're estimating, we're going to take these same 3 steps for rounding and just apply them to our estimates to make our lives easier. We talked about mental math and how this rounding makes our life easier. So let's look right here. I'm going to round to my hundreds. I'm going to go right next door. Same thing. 8 is 5 or larger, so my 6 is going to go up to 7. Everything to the left stays the same. Everything to the right becomes zeros. Keep my plus sign. I'm going to do the same thing. Round to my hundreds. My 2 is 4 or smaller, so my 3 stays the same. Everything to the left, there's nothing there. Everything to the right becomes zeros. Now I can add these 2 numbers in my head a lot easier and estimate that the answer to my problem is going to be about 1,000. Okay, let's come down here. Since I have one that's in the ones here, I'm actually going to round both places to the nearest 1. So let's do our first number here, right next door to our neighbor. That 7 is 5 or larger, so my 9 needs to go up. Now remember, we talked about these tricky ones. When my 9 goes up, he becomes a 0. and we push that 1 next door. So now I need to add 1 into my tens. Now everything to the right becomes a 0. So 20 minus, do the same thing here. 9 is 5 or larger, so we're going up to 7.0. 7 0/10. So now I can do 20 minus 7 super easily and say that my problem, my estimated answer is going to be 13. So now let's do these together. I'm going to say 59. The 9 tells my 5 to go up to 6. Everything to the right becomes a 0. 43. My 3 tells my 4 to stay the same. Everything to the right becomes a 0. 95. My 5 tells my 9 to go up to 10. Everything to the right becomes a 0. And I was able to just write the 10 like that for my 100 because there wasn't anything here already. There wasn't anything I needed to add to that 100. So now I can say 60 plus 40 is 100, plus another 100. My estimate is going to be about 200. Okay? So now I would like to I would like to round to my tens. Both numbers have tens, and the decimals are just going to make things really difficult. So I'm going to round to both tens. So same process, guys. Go to the right next door. My 7 tells my 8 to go up. Everything to the left stays the same. There's nothing else there. Everything to the right becomes zeros. Remember, I want you to practice putting the zeros in all those spots to make sure everybody's in their assigned place. Okay, minus 5. I'm rounding to my 10. I go next door to the 2. The 2 is 4 or lower, so my 5 is going to stay the same. Everything to the right becomes 0. So now I can do 90 minus 50 and estimate that my answer will be 40. On today's assignment, it's going to look very familiar to Monday's assignment with practice just with rounding and practice with estimating. Please make sure, I reminded a lot of friends, please make sure that on your estimating practices, you're not just doing the work to do your problems, you're actually rounding and estimating your answer. Okay? Also, I reminded everyone in small groups that the reason you only have 2 assignments today is so you can go back to last week's assignments, week 5, check for answers or corrections, highlights, suggestions, things like that from myself or Mr. Jackson, and make those corrections so that you can gain some points back. I have some friends that really need to earn those points back so we can get our grades up before the end of the quarter. Also, now that you've had your review, it would be a fantastic opportunity to go back to Monday's assignment and check your work. Okay? We don't have office hours today if you need help, but if you do have a question or you need help, please don't hesitate to send myself or Mr. Jackson an email and ask for some assistance with rounding and estimating or your other assignment for today. As usual, love y'all, miss you guys, deuces.